that you guys will get both the video and the audio of this. So welcome to the Zoom webinar, 5 Keys to Having Ease with Money. So I'm really excited to share this with you. This is a long time coming in developing this class. You know, as some of you know, I'm a psychologist in private practice, and I've been doing this for many, many years. Got turned on to energy psychology techniques about 20 years ago, and then found access consciousness about 6 years ago, and became a facilitator. And one of the themes that I keep seeing in my clients over and over again is the struggle with money, the struggle with finances. So, so I, really looked at that, and of course, did my own work on my own financial situations. And a lot changed for me with Access. And I looked at that and said, wow, there's some really powerful tools here. So I really immersed myself in all the different books. As I think most people on this call are all familiar with Access. So I'm going to take it as if you guys I'm not going to go through like basic stuff like the clearing statement and all that. If you guys want to find out more, you go to the Access Consciousness website. If you're wondering what this weird clearing statement I'm going to use is, go to theclearingstatement.com. But from what I saw from the people who signed up, I know a lot of whom couldn't be live on the call. Most of you, I recognize your names from Access. So you probably already have some familiarity with what's out there. But there's a number of books that have been written and workbooks within Access by a bunch of different people. And I really studied those and did the How to Become Money workbook, and actually got to edit the advanced How to Become Money workbook, which recently came out and is awesome. And I've taken so many different classes with Gary, with Shannon, with Curry, with any number of facilitators who have done classes on money. And so there's so much information out there that I wanted to take the best of, or what I found to be the most useful information from all those different sources. And of course, everything I had worked on, through other modalities in the past, and put together something simple for people to use that will help change your financial reality. Okay, so that's kind of what this class is about. And I'm actually doing a 5-part series, which I'll talk about more at the end, where we go more in depth with this. But I wanted to give this free Zoominar to give people an overview of what are these 5 keys, and if you want to change your financial reality, what are some things you really need to maybe go a little deeper with. So that's kind of the purpose of all of this. So if you guys could have anything out of our session today, what would it be? Anyone? You can type it in the chat box, or you can say it, or I'll look to you, Kyla, since
oh, okay, I can go.
Yeah.
You're my I was going to say basically what you've named the series. So Ease with Money would be amazing.
Cool. So anything that has not allowed you to have ease with money thus far, will you destroy and uncreate all that?
Yes, please.
Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pock, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds. And that's the clearing statement for anyone who doesn't know. Yeah, and Access Consciousness.
And Catherine Grace has just said in the chat, ease with money as well.
Ease with money. Okay, yeah. So we want to look at, like, what is it that hasn't allowed us to have ease with money, okay? And I want to go more in depth with that. And I also want to offer facilitation. So this is, like any Access class, please ask your questions. There is no such thing as a stupid question, because I'd like to give you like some hands-on, a sense for how you can go about facilitating, a change and creating more ease with money. Okay. But let me just start by laying it out. So like, what are the 5 keys I've come up with for having ease with money? 1, know what it costs you to live. 2, create financial targets and ask for them to show up. 3, get clear on your financial reality and clear limiting points of view. 4, create an abundance mindset. And 5, increase your receiving. Okay, and what I hope to do, today is to give you a general overview of those 5 things, like what does that even mean? And then in the class, since it's a 5-part series, we're going to go much deeper into it. I actually piloted this class here in San Francisco. I did it with a group of people, and I did it as a 4-hour class. And what I found, and I gave a handout, I have a really cool little handout here that that I plan to give to people also who take the webinar series, where we cover different aspects of each of these 5 keys, and then I include processes and questions and exercises you can do, some of which I came up with, and a lot of which came from, you know, the other sources in Access. Like, I'm not reinventing the wheel here, and I do give people credit. Like, I took this from Simone's Getting Out of Debt Joyfully class or whatever. So just so you know that that's included in this as well. So maybe what I want to do is maybe go through each of these a little bit more, and then if you guys have questions, bring them up. Okay, so knowing what it costs you to live. What I have found for most people is they suffer from this thing called financial vagueness syndrome, meaning they don't really have a clear sense of how much is coming in and how much is going out, particularly how much is going out. A lot of people have a better sense of, like, especially if you're on a salary, you get a regular paycheck, you know how much, you know, income is coming your way typically. But most people don't do a very good job at tracking their expenses. I know for me, I hated doing that. My way of tracking expenses was to take receipts and put them in a box and hide the box away. And once a year, when it was time to do my taxes, and I would dread it for months, I'd just be like, oh God, I really need to deal with these expenses. And I would blow it off. I would never do it. And then like a week before I had to turn in the paperwork to my accountant, I'd be in there with like papers all over the floor, trying to create some sort of organization around my expenses, and then put it in in an Excel spreadsheet and send it, you know, to the accountant to figure out. And I hated it. And I had a lot of judgment of myself around it. I used to make myself wrong. Like, why can't I just, you know, do this every month? And I'd go through all this stress and trauma and drama around tracking my expenses. I don't know if any of you can relate to that. But it's, so what changed for me, one of the things that's made my life immensely easier is to start actually tracking my finances much more, or in a much more organized manner. So for me, what I found was a program called Expensify. I absolutely love this program. It is, you can get it for free as an app on your phone and as a program for your computer. And essentially what it does is you can connect it with your credit card, with your bank account, and it'll automatically pull the charges from those accounts. And I know that Quicken and there's other programs that do that. But for me, I liked Expensify because it just seemed really simple and easy to use. So now what happens is all of anything I put on a credit card or that goes through like my debit card, or I write a check or whatever, automatically will get pulled into Expensify. And then all I need to do is categorize it into the right place. So I have like my business expenses, and then I have my personal expenses, and then I made up categories within them, just like you would with like your taxes if you have a business. Like, these are office expenses, these are car expenses, this is my rent. You know, you have all these different categories, and all you need to do is click a few buttons to get the expense to go to the right place. And from there, you can generate reports. From there, you can find out what it's costing you to live. And that's ultimately what Access, any of the money classes in Access will talk to you about, is you need to know what it costs to live. Okay? So if you're doing financial vagueness, you're not going to know like how much you're not going to keep track of little things like that $5 latte, or, you know, this or that or whatever. So you don't know what to ask for. You don't know what to ask the universe for in terms of what you need to create every month to actually live. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you find out what your expenses are, you find out what your income is, and what a lot of people will come to realize is that there's some sort of imbalance there. Like, perhaps your outflow of money is far greater than your inflow of money. And so then something needs to change, right? Then you need to start asking for more money to show up. And so when you calculate this, right, when you're looking at what does it cost you to live, what Gary says, Gary's the founder of Access Consciousness, he says you want to include in that not just like your basic survival expenses, but also like what would it take, you know, how much money do you need to have fun, to go out and do things, to travel, to go to the movies, to buy clothes. You want to include all of that as well as the 10%, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. You factor all of that in, okay, in terms of what it costs you to live. And remember to include things like your taxes. The first time I did this, I somehow forgot to include my taxes, which really threw my numbers off, right? Because I have my own business. And so I actually have to pay quite a bit in taxes. So you do all that and find a system that works for you, okay? For me, I love the Expensify. Some people like Quicken. Some people like a program called Mint. I know Julia Sodas loves having a big, giant ledger, like old school style, and she literally hand writes in all of her expenses. It doesn't matter what you choose. The point is you need to do it, okay? So I'm tapping into some resistance in people's universes around that. So any resistance you have to knowing how much you are spending or knowing how much is coming in, will you guys destroy and uncreate all that?
Yes.
Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. Okay, and I know I talk a lot and I talk fast. So please feel free to interrupt me at any point. Do you guys have any questions about this idea, knowing what it costs you to live? Okay. Something else I want to say about it too is a lot of people will function from a budget. In this reality, they tell you you need to function from a budget and you can only spend this much money on your expenses. Well, the problem with a budget from Access's point of view is that it's a limitation. If you say, I can only spend this much that I have on my budget, it doesn't allow for any more money to come in. You're essentially saying to the universe, I only desire and require X amount of dollars, okay? So there's no way the universe can bring you any more money. So I would advise you to move away from budget and instead look at what is it gonna cost you to live, including the fun and all of that, and then start asking the universe, and there's exercises you can do like energy pulls and things like that to bring that money to you. Make sense?
Yes. That's really a good point, because that's what I was planning to do after I moved back to Japan, because for now I don't have no job over there. So everything is going to be based on, you know, what my asset here, right. And I have to budget it. And so, you know, but that's nice to hear that when you budget, then money won't come in. So right. Yeah, I had to kind of restructure that and rethink about that.
Right, right. Yeah, so you need to do some research probably on, and for the time being, maybe you do for a period of time work from a budget because that's your transition time. But ultimately, what I would suggest is you get some clarity, you do your research, you find out how much is it going to cost me to live, and then you ask for at least that amount to show up. That's the other piece I want to say about this is like, okay, let's say you find out it costs you $10,000 a month to live. Don't stop there. Don't say, universe, what would it take for 10 grand to show up? You want to ask, universe, what would it take for at least $10,000 a month to show up, or no less than $10,000 a month to show up, because you want to leave room in there for more, right? You don't want to limit yourself at 10 grand. Okay? Yeah. So what would it take? That's the way I would set up the question. What would it take for blank to show up, right? And then everything that doesn't allow that, you can destroy and uncreate it. Right, wrong, good, bad, pop, poc, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. And one of the questions I also like to play with in this section is, what would it take for your inflow of money to be far greater than your outflow? In other words, your income being far greater than your expenses. And anything that doesn't allow that, will you guys destroy and uncreate it? Right, wrong, good, bad, pop, poc, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. Right. Cool. Any other questions about number one, knowing what it costs you to live? Nope. All right, then I'm going to move on to number 2, which is create financial targets and ask for them to show up. So I already kind of gave a sense of that when I said, find out how much it costs you to live and then ask for that money to show up. But here's the thing. Get a sense for, okay, so let's say, do most of you have an idea of what it costs you to live per month or per year or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay, so think about that amount of money. So if you have that amount of money coming in, right, is that actually enough for you?
No.
Do you get lit up at that amount? Exactly. And that's a really important point. A lot of people only look at, what do I need in order to survive, right? They're functioning from that survival mentality. When Access, what we're inviting you to do is, what would you like to create? What would be fun for you? What would be exciting for you? What lights you up, right? And the amount that you think that is may often not be enough, right? So, and sometimes it's crazy. Like, I played with this a lot, and I remember in the beginning, like when I first started asking this question, it was like, okay, well, I was very realistic about it. I was like, okay, well, let's like just double my current income. Like, let's say if my income was like, let's go again with 10 grand, then I would like to create 20 grand a month. But when I looked at that, I was like, that's not really all that exciting, right? So anywhere you guys are creating financial targets from this reality, right? Because I was computing like, wow, that's a big jump to even just double my income. How many more clients would I started computing and calculating. So anywhere you guys are functioning from the calculations and the computations of this reality, when you come up with your financial targets, will you destroy and uncreate all that?
Yes.
Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyond. So now if I were to ask myself that question today, like what would I like to, let's just even just say with income. I mean, there's lots of financial targets you can have, but I'm just speaking simply about income. So if I ask myself, what would be exciting for me? What would be really fun? At this point, it would be $1 million a month. Okay, that would be exciting. Now, your reaction to that might be, well, how in the hell is that ever going to happen? Right? That's where people want to go to, is the how. How could I possibly create $1 million a month? What would there's no way I can do that as a psychologist, blah, blah, blah. You go into the how it's possible, how it's not possible, all that kind of stuff. In Access, we don't worry about that. Okay. What you want to get is get the targets that are fun for you, that are exciting from you, and then start asking questions around, well, what's it going to take for that to show up? What other revenue streams are possible? What kinds of skills and capacities do I have that can make me money? Especially those things, Gary talks about this a lot, the things that are so easy for you that you think that no one would ever pay for, right? Like, how can those things make you money? That's when you start asking questions. The specific one he says is, what 10 things are so easy for you that could make you money? You might want to make a list like that, okay? The thing is, as part of this, creating your financial targets, you want to acknowledge, right? Some of you who've taken Access classes have heard the importance of acknowledging your capacities. You want to acknowledge all of your capacities, even if, and your potency, even if you created a pile of crap, okay? Because that's all about getting out of, and this sort of goes into the next key, but it's all about getting out of that, like, let's say, victim mentality, or these things happened to me. I had this like financial disaster that happened to me. No, you created that, all right? Which is not about going into blame. It's not about shame. It's not about making you wrong that you created a financial disaster. It's about empowering you. Like, wow, like I have some serious potent capacities. Look at what a huge pile of crap I created. Imagine what would be possible if I could actually create something different with that potency. How much financial success could I create, right, with that potency? Does that make sense for you guys? So acknowledging what is and what you have already created is really important in terms of being able to create something different for the future, okay? Another exercise in terms of creating financial targets and asking for them to show up is the energy ball exercise. That's in the foundation class. It's where you're basically it's a bit like the law of attraction, I guess. You're pulling energy, like you put whatever it is you're desiring to create, like in a ball. I can walk you guys through it if you want, actually. Let's just do that quickly. So think about a financial target that you have. Like maybe it's something like I'd like to have X amount of dollars a month. Maybe it's I would like to, get the startup capital together to start a new business, to start a company, to start a charity. I don't know. What other financial targets might you guys have?
Getting out of debt.
Getting out of debt. Okay. So, and with here's another thing I want to say about that. With debt, we want to use the term past expenditures.
Yeah.
Right? Because that sounds like death. And they used to send people to debtor's prison, and people would die in there. And so any traumas you guys have had from other lifetimes where you went to debtor's prison, will you guys destroy and uncreate all that?
Yes.
Right? We're on I'll talk all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Yeah. So, so Kyla, I would invite you to consider something. Like when you say that financial target, getting out of debt or getting out from under your past expenditures, what is the energy around that?
It's awful, yeah.
Right?
Flip that around.
Is that a target you really want to be like creating?
Yeah.
So
it's definitely the wrong phrasing and energy of it.
Yeah. So how could you word it differently to actually be something you would be excited about?
It's more so about the because I guess the feeling behind that is that it holds you back. So being free. Okay. Not that I'm not free already, but being away from that.
Sure. So is it more along the lines of creating financial freedom?
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So tap into now we don't know what that means, right? So here's the thing about these targets. I mean, I gave you the example of something specific, like what would it take for at least 10 grand to show up a month? But you don't have to just do it that way because it's really about an energy. What would it take for you to have financial freedom? So just tap into the energy of financial freedom. And you might even want to flesh it out more in terms of like, what does that actually mean? Maybe that means I want to be able to, take time off and fly around the world and go places and see things. And maybe it has that. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you don't know exactly what that is, but you have a sense of the energy. Yeah. Yeah.
It's being able to do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it.
Exactly. So that's the energy I would suggest you put in the ball. Okay. Yes. So so everyone pick a financial target and imagine putting it in a ball in front of you. Okay. Let me come up with one too. Okay. Now what you want to do is, and you expand your own energy field out, right? That's a very useful tool and access. So imagine, your energy field, like your aura, expanding out in all directions, right? Until you're as big as the room that you're in, as big as the building you're in, as big as the city block or area you're in, the town you're in, the state you're in, the country you're in. And you can do this instantaneously. Like I'm kind of doing it step by step, but in all actuality, I could tell you guys expand out to infinite and you guys could go there right now. So the idea being you want to get as big and infinite as possible. Okay. Now from that space, pull energy from all over the universe through the ball and through you. Imagine it going like into your body and out the back. Pull energy from all over the universe into the ball and through you. And there's lots of variations on this, right? But just do that. And then imagine little trickles of your energy going out into the world and connecting with all the peoples, the places, the revenue sources, the businesses, whatever it is that's going to match the vibration of what you're looking to create with the ball. Okay? So like if your target was something like, starting a new company, then maybe you're going to allow those little trickles to go out to all of the investors, all of the connectors, all the people who know someone who could help you, like whatever it is. Let them imagine like you're sending out a mass text message and it hits all the people who match that vibration. And then you pull energy through them and threw the ball into you so that you become like that magnet and you attract all of those people, places, situations, energies, whatever's required to actualize that target that you have. And then you let little trickles go out to them. So you want the inflow to be stronger than the outflow. Does that make sense? So you're pulling them to you so they find you. That is an excellent exercise. I've used that exercise for so many different things, from creating an amazing office here in San Francisco to creating clients, money, friendships, like people, interesting people to show up in my world, partners, all kinds of different things. You can use that for anything, for creating more joy, for creating anything. Okay? Really helpful exercise. Questions about any of that? Okay. So the next key, so we had, okay, knowing what it costs you to live, creating financial targets and asking for them to show up. And then this is a big one. Number 3, get clear on your financial reality and clear limiting points of view. So most of you, if I ask you, what is your financial reality? Do any of you have any idea what that is?
Yeah, I've been always sort of underestimating my capacity.
Yeah.
So when you charge something, it's really hard to come out and, charge whatever. You kind of put the lid over it and say,
right.
oh, that's going to be too expensive or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
That's one of the major areas.
Mm-hmm. So, right. So there's this thing, there's often a discrepancy between what your actual financial reality is and the financial reality that you are functioning from. So I think, Bruce, what you're saying right there is you're functioning perhaps from a more limited financial reality, from some sort of limited point of view, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where you want to start looking at, okay, well, where did that come from? Where did this financial reality come from?
It's all your past and your environment and
yes.
Your whatever, all that garbage you build up in your memories or subconscious.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where we end up in this class spending a big chunk of time. This is where we spent, so when I did that initial class here in San Francisco, we spent 4 hours and just sort of went through the 5 keys, and then we added a second class, and now we're adding a third class because we're going so much more in depth around these issues. Like, where did the limiting points of view come from? Because you've got your family's financial reality, like whatever you grew up with. You might have a cultural, influence. Like, for example, my parents were children in World War II, and they grew up in Romania, which became a communist country. So there was a lot of poverty, there was a lot of scarcity, there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of limitation, right? So they brought that with them, even though they eventually came to America and were able to create success. My father in particular very much struggled with that deprivation, right? And that sense of scarcity, so that when he started finally making money, he went overboard and went into, I would say, like shopping addiction. Where it's almost like he was trying to make up for all the years of deprivation by like spending money like crazy and in an addictive kind of way, which had an influence on me. It's one of the things I ended up struggling with, is like overspending and not wanting to deprive myself of things and being willing to rack up like lots of credit card debt in order to defend against feeling deprived, right? So that was something that I had to look at as part of my cultural influence, right? And I've seen that with other people. I've seen that with generation. If you're like I'm a first generation of immigrants, right? Or people who went through the Great Depression in the United States, which also had an influence around the world. So there's lots of things in our personal histories, in our family histories, like maybe you had ancestors that were in like the Irish potato famine, right? And then we can look at other lifetimes. Like, how many lifetimes have you guys had traumas around finances? Like, maybe in some lifetime you had a lot of money and you got killed for it. And then maybe you left that lifetime saying, well, I'll never do that again. And so then you made an oath of vow or swearing to never have money again. And guess what? That might still be with you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or maybe you had a lifetime in which you were a priest or a nun or some sort of spiritual person. And, money was not seen as from that worldview, money can be sinful. It can be evil, right? You have all these beliefs around money is the root of all evil. So we want to look at that stuff. If you had a lifetime in which you were a priest and say you took a vow of poverty, the energy of that vow might still be working with you today. Okay? So we want to look at other lifetimes. We want to look at this lifetime. We want to look at historical or world events that may have influenced us. There's a whole bunch of stuff here around what can be creating a limited financial reality, a poverty mentality, a scarcity mentality, maybe no matter what I try, I'll always lose it all, something like that, okay? Or that it has to be difficult, or that you have to work hard for it, that money can't come easily to you, right? I came from the same thing. My father worked 12 hours a day, and it was very much the mentality of the harder you work, the more you'll get rewarded. And so I made myself sick with chronic fatigue syndrome and Lyme disease. Part of that was me working so hard trying to create my life and create a financial reality that now I realize is not required. What would it take for money to come easily to me, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to look at all that stuff, right? It's really important. Traumas that have happened, in the class when we did the money class here in San Francisco, past failures you may have had. Like one of the guys in the class had gone bankrupt, and he had created a lot of judgments and wrongnesses about himself because of that bankruptcy that then was getting in the way of him being able to create something different now because he sees himself as a failure, right? So you got to look at the limiting points of views and the judgments you have of yourself and your capacities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Huge topic. So I'm wondering, as I'm talking about this, is anything coming up for you guys?
I was just kind of wondering, in your experience, Adriana, and in the class that you've done, is this something that it is really beneficial to go through sort of one by one and look at each individual limitation? It's not sort of something you can just kind of brush over.
Well, listen, my experience with this and working with clients now for over 20 years is that these issues have deep roots. So every time you do the clearing statement, every time you clear a piece of it, yes, you peel off another layer, and that's great. But sometimes, especially if at the very root of it is a very limited core self-limiting belief, like I'm not enough, okay? Mm-hmm. That's just not, that's been reinforced like lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. That's not necessarily going to clear with one clearing statement, one time of a pock and pod. Sometimes it has to go. Sometimes you have to go deeper and deeper. Okay.
And
go ahead.
I guess the whole choice trumps, clearing and pocking and potting and all the rest of it.
And
is it harder to get to that point? Do you think if you haven't gone through the layers and
Dane said something in Malaysia. I was just in Malaysia at the 7-day. We were having a Maestro meeting. And one of the things that Dane said is he spoke to that. He's like, I know you guys sometimes get frustrated in class because Gary will say, well, it's just choice, right? And I'm sure you guys who have taken, if any of you have been in class with Gary or have heard him on like Voice America or something, he'll often say, honey, it's just a choice. And it can be really frustrating because when you're in that space of your shit, your limitation, it doesn't feel like there's a choice. So some of the topics they've been talking about lately, like the relational digitizations, that's all about the either or no choice universe, or the thoughts, feelings, emotions, sex, no thoughts, no feelings, no emotions, no sex. That stuff can be getting in the way of you even realizing that you have a choice. So I think that sometimes we need to clear that shit first before we can get to the space to actually choose. Yeah. My experience has also been that if you're really functioning from a limited perspective, like no matter, like let's say, no matter what I do, I just can never get it right, then that tends to, that point of view and all the energy attached to it is so contracted and so limited that it puts you in this tiny little contracted state. It's very difficult to create from that. You can, but it's very difficult. So I have found that choice trumping clearing, and that it's just a choice, has become much more easier for me over time as I've done more of the clearing and I've used more of the tools, and my confidence is built up to actually where I am today, about 6 years into doing Access. I now know, it's not even a thinking, it's a knowing, a full-on knowing that I can change anything. And that if anything is not showing up in my world that I've asked for or that I desire, it's because there's something I'm not willing to be or receive or have, and that I now have the tools with Access to change whatever that is. And if it's not changing yet, it's maybe because I'm not ready yet, or I'm still holding on to something, or what's the value of? That's one of the questions, you know, in this section. Some of the exercises that I go more in depth with, it's like what's the value of? Like, what's the value of holding on to this? What's the value of holding on to, for instance, credit card debt? Or what do you love about it? What do you hate about it? What do you love about having money? What do you love about having no money? What do you hate about it? Because when you start doing, and you keep potting everything that comes up, we can do this. I've had people do it as a written exercise. I've had it as a free flow, like let's just put it all out there and keep potting it. We can do this for like a long period of time. I could do a whole, you know, call just on that. It probably will as part of this series. Because it's the meaning and significance we give and the judgments we have of all of these things that are creating the limitations. Okay? So doing clearings, like what do you love about it? What do you hate about it? What does it mean to you? What does success mean to you? What does failure mean to you? The more we can pot all the charges, the positive and the negative, the right and the wrong, the good and the bad, then you get out of that state of contraction and you create more space. And from the space, it's much easier to choose and it's much easier to create. It's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but does that make sense?
No, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, here's another exercise I'll give you guys that I thought was really helpful that I got from Simone's new book, which is fabulous, Getting Out of Debt Joyfully, which I highly recommend for everyone, even if you don't have debt, because it isn't just about that. There's a lot of questions in there that are really helpful, like just to ask yourself every day, like, you know, what other revenue streams are available? Like, what does my business require of me today? She has lots of really good, like, practical tools and questions that you can use, even if debt is not your issue. But one of the exercises that she gives from her book that I found really helpful that we did in the class was write down what you believe are your failures in life, whether it's business, money, whatever. I mean, it could be anything. For each failure, write or ask, if I didn't judge this as a failure, what contribution can I receive from this? Or what's right about this that I'm not getting? What's right with it that what's right about me I'm not getting? What awareness did this create in my life that I would not have otherwise? Okay? So for someone like the client I was telling you about who had created a bankruptcy, he was so stuck in the judgment of that he couldn't acknowledge what was right about it, which was he learned a lot about how to run a business and how not to run a business, you know? And he was able to get himself out of that successfully. So he has capacities and he has tenacity and he has persistence and he has all these qualities that he could be harnessing and using to create more. But all of that gets overshadowed by his judgment of himself. And of course, all the blame, shame, regret, guilt takes you all into distractor implant territory, which completely incapacitates him and paralyzes him and makes it so he can't create something greater. Make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how kind of all of those pieces fit together. Does anyone have any questions or something you're aware of that you'd like facilitation on in terms of a limiting point of view? or something that's creating a limited financial reality for you? And you may not, and that's fine. Cool. So the last piece I want to say about this is Shannon talks about this a lot. I'm in her year-long money series. Actually, Kyla is too. One of the first things she talked about in that series was getting clear on what your actual financial reality is. So most of us are functioning from a limited financial reality based on the history, on the programming, on all the stuff we talked about. But this is about finding out what is your true financial reality. See, for her, she created a lot of the same struggles many of us had. Early on in her life, she had debt and she had doubts and insecurities and I can't create money and all that kind of stuff. But as she actually peeled all that back and looked at what was true for her, she actually has, her financial reality is joy with money. Okay? And she now functions from that. And from that, she's able to create a shit ton of money. Jenna is a person who's created over $1 million a year with her business over time. And she did that by acknowledging what her actual reality with money is. Okay? So this may not be clear to you at first. At first, a lot of us are still asking. We're months into this class now, and some people are still unclear about what our true financial reality is. For me, what I realized is mine is actually, it's along the lines of joy. It's like this, my true financial reality is one that's kind of magical, and I liken it to like champagne bubbles. It's like, woo! It has that sort of like, boom feeling. And it has a sense of adventure and play to it. That's what's fun for me. That's how things actually are with me. It's fun for me to spend money. It's actually fun for me to have money. It's fun for me to play with different denominations from other countries that are colorful and playful and not so much our bland, like gray, green money we have here. Like those are the things that are fun for me. So, and then Kyla, I don't know if this has gotten clearer for you over time. Have you gotten a better sense of what is your true financial reality?
I have, but it's not 100% clear. It is related to the joy as well in some sort of sense. Like that's not entirely clear, but that is definitely there. Yeah. And then kindness as well. The ability I would have, and I do have, to create more of that in the world. Yeah. Using money and through money.
So the thing with that is, and thanks for bringing that up. So even though you might not yet have achieved or created your financial targets, how can you be more of that energy in the world, right? So then
that's what I've been playing with.
Yeah, there's a few different things you could do with that. For example, you could do the energy ball exercise with that energy of the kindness and the joy. And then you could also ask questions like, okay, well, what would it take for more of that energy to show up? Let's say you have a day off. Where could I go today? What could I do today that would bring more of that energy, that would create more of that? And you might find that it's something totally non-linear, like going to the beach. I'm going to go to the beach today, and I'm going to be the energy of kindness and be the energy of joy. And that will attract more money to you, because money is attracted to that lighter, expansive, joyful, playful, like money likes fun, okay? It doesn't want to come to your sad sob party of contraction and limitation, okay? So the more, and I think this speaks to like the How to Become Money workbook, in the sense of like, what if there were no separation between you and money? What if you were the energy of money, right? So that might suggest like, how do I create that in other areas of my life? How can I be that with my friend or with my family or with my dog or whatever, playing, with creating, with music, with dancing. It doesn't matter linearly, but ask for more of that energy to show up. Choose more of that energy. And then when it shows up, acknowledge it. Like, yeah, that was awesome. I had so much fun today, or I had so much, I love that kindness that showed up for me today. Because then you're acknowledging to the universe, yes, this is what I'm looking for. And I would now like more of it to show up. Okay, so you want to do that. Here's a cool question. What can you be or do different each day to become more aware of the choices, possibilities, and contribution that are available to you in every moment. And everything that doesn't allow that, you guys destroy and uncreate it.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, good, bad, pop, pop, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Okay. Anything else around financial reality, clearing limiting points of view? It's a big piece of this work. Okay. Sorry, I know the light keeps changing in here. All right, cool. Number 4, create an abundance mindset. Okay. Few things we're going to cover in this area that I think are important is, what have you made the source for the creation of money? Some of us have made need or necessity as the source of creation. Like, I don't really pay much attention to money until it's a week before rent, and then out of the necessity and the need, I start creating for that. Okay? So whatever that is for you, you want to ask some questions about that. What have you made the source for the creation of money? Is it, some people will do it, well, I have to support my family, right? So I have to hustle, I have to get out there and work because I got people to support. But what is the source for you? And whatever that is, you destroy and uncreate it. Right, wrong, good, bad, pop, pop, all nine shorts, boys, beyonds. What if the source of the creation of money were joy, were play, were fun? Might that actually create more for you than need, necessity, judgment? I'm not good enough. I have to prove something to someone. Okay. There's some pragmatic, steps you can take around here. If you guys have taken like a foundation class, this is where we talk about things like carry the amount of money in your wallet that a rich person would, right? That will give you the sense of having money, what it's like to have money. Putting away 10% to the tithing to the church of you. When you put 10% away of everything that comes in, all the different sources of income, you take 10%, you put it aside, you don't spend it, okay? You let it grow and you let it build, and what happens over time is you get to some sort of like, magical number, and it's different for everyone, where you actually really get, oh my God, I have money. And it really changes your mindset around, oh my God, I'm not in poverty anymore, I'm not poor anymore, I actually have money. Okay, that's kind of what those exercises are meant for you to do. So I highly recommend that. When I did the 10%, at first I fought it tooth and nail because I was like, I don't have 10% to put away. I got bills to pay. But the problem is when you prioritize your bills over you, the universe interprets that as, oh, your bills are your priority, so let's give you more of those. When I changed that around for myself, and I started putting the 10% away first and then paying bills, I was able to get myself out of, at that point, about 10 grand of credit card debt within a matter of a few months, which I didn't think was possible before. So it does do something energetic that changes your psychology, I would say, around money and finances. So if you guys are not doing those things, I highly would recommend that you do. And a lot of, in the class too, there was definitely resistance around that, and then we worked through it. We talked about it, what's the point of view around that. What else? Practical things in here. Like when you buy something or pay a bill, ask for that amount to come back to you at least tenfold or more. So I'm paying my, my taxes. What would it take for at least 10 times this amount to come back to me? Ask for that. When you buy things, give them a job. If I buy you, will you make me money? That also will help you make a choice around whether it's going to be a contribution to your life, and it gives the thing a job. And again, this is not linear. Let's say I'm buying like a sweater. Okay, I'm buying this sweater. I'm going to ask, if I buy you, will you make me money? It's not linear in the sense of, oh, I'm going to resell it at some point and make money. It's more like, what does me wearing this sweater create for me? Like, I feel really sexy in my little sweater here. And when I walk down the street, I'm strutting my stuff. People are drawn to that. And then people might talk to me and find out I'm a therapist. And, oh, hey, I'm looking for a therapist. It might make money for me in that kind of way. So, non-linear. What else? This is where things like gratitude come in, right? Gratitude and judgment cannot coexist in the same space.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking to create an abundance mindset, you want to have a lot of gratitude for what is. Because if for example, let's say your house or your apartment, if you have a lot of judgment around it, oh, it's too small, it's not enough, whatever, then it's going to be really difficult to create something different. But if instead you can have gratitude for what is, like, I'm really grateful for my little apartment. You know, I'm so glad that I have it. And you can always go to, like, other people don't even have this. Other people are sleeping on the street. I'm so grateful I have a comfortable home to live in. And at the same time, acknowledge, and it's not enough for me. And what would it take to create something greater? Okay? So not to function from the space of it's wrong or bad. Or there's something wrong with, like, what's wrong with me that I don't live in a nicer house? That is not going to create for you. That's going to create more limitation, more judgment. So gratitude will go a long way to shifting that negative thinking, the stinking thinking, all that. Make sense?
Yes.
I talked about fun. Definitely having fun and joy will create more money. It creates that generative, expansive energy. So definitely create more fun in your world if it isn't there already. I like this. I always like this question. When you find yourself hitting like a brick wall, like, what's beyond all this? What else is possible that I have never even considered? And what would it take to create a financial reality beyond this reality? Okay. Again, these are not necessarily questions to look for an answer. These are questions designed to make a request of the universe and of yourself for a different possibility to show up. And then I love this point. What physical actualization of a totally unreal, unbelievable, unfathomable, fantastic, phenomenal, financial and monetary reality, totally beyond this one, are you now capable of generating, creating, and instituting? Everything that doesn't allow that, will you destroy and uncreate it all?
Yes.
Right, get bad, pop, all my insurance, boys and beyonds. Okay? Questions about any of that? And then the last key, number 5, for having more ease with money is to increase your receiving. Okay, so what does that even mean? Well, I love the way Simone defines it. Receiving is simply being willing to have infinite possibilities for something coming into your life without a point of view about it, without a point of view about what, where, when, how, or why it shows up. When you lose your judgments of money and of you in relation to money, you can receive more. Okay? So what creates the lack of receiving? Well, we talked about a lot of it already. It's the judgments we have, right? Because every time we make a judgment, we put up a wall or a barrier. The wall or the barrier does not know what it's supposed to keep out, so guess what? It keeps out everything. So if you put up walls and barriers around people, let's say you got abused early in life, and you put up walls and barriers to protect yourself, okay? Those walls will keep everything out, including money, including fun, including, I don't know, whatever it is you're looking to create. So we got to look at that and bring those walls and barriers down, okay, to be able to have more receiving. Here's also the place where you want to ask questions like, what are you unwilling to choose or receive or create or have? What would it mean to you? So if you actually had the things you're asking for, let's say, you know, if I am asking for, what would it take to have at least $1 million a month? What does that actually mean to me? And am I actually willing to have that? Am I willing to perhaps to outcreate that? Am I willing to outcreate others? Am I willing to be the tall poppy? Am I willing to receive the judgments that people might have of me should I actually have that much money, right? There might be some limiting points of view in this area as well. Here's where you also want to be willing to receive everything and lose everything, or else you will be at the effect of it. Okay, so anything you're not willing to be, anything you're not willing to acknowledge, you will be at the effect of. And we go into a lot more depth around what that means. But it's going to create a limitation in your world if you have a limiting point of view around that. And then the question that I like to ask a lot here that really shifted a lot for me in Malaysia was, what would it take to increase my receiving exponentially? Love that question, because I have no idea how that's going to happen, but it's a demand I'm making of myself that my receiving increases exponentially. And sure enough, you know, ask and you shall receive, it is showing up for me, and it's been really, really awesome.
Okay, I'll be done.
Okay, so questions you guys might have about increasing your receiving. Okay, questions in the last few minutes we have here, questions in general about anything I've talked about. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
So question. So then let me talk about where I want to go with this, okay? So you guys have gotten a sense of these 5 keys to having ease with money. You see that there's a lot of content around each of them. So my plan with creating this 5-part Zoom class is that starts a week from today in this same time slot. It'll be 2 p.m. Pacific time every week for the next 5 weeks, starting the 31st, a week from today. My target with it is to go much more in depth on all these different topics and to really give a lot of facilitation to people with whatever it is that's coming up for them, what limitations there are. We'll go through the judgments, we'll go through the traumas, we'll go through whatever is getting in the way. I don't want to do a 10%, or I'm having resistance to tracking my expenses. Like whatever it is that's keeping you stuck, I really want to do the hands-on facilitation around that to create a shift and to create a change. They won't necessarily go like 1 week per key, because I have a feeling it won't be that like distinct, but we will cover all 5 across the 5 weeks. It'll be 90 minutes each. I've priced it at $150 American, which I think is pretty reasonable, because most people who struggle with money issues have a hard time paying a lot of money for a class. So I wanted to make it affordable for people. And I am honoring country pricing too. Access is, you know, if you're in an 80% or 65% country, we will honor that pricing as well. So I would love to have you guys join me on this journey. The class that we did, they really got some cool results, and we're still going with it. You know, like we're on our 3rd class here next week, and we're probably going to keep going after that, because we just keep getting more and more deeper and deeper, and they're starting to really see the changes showing up, which is awesome. And I love, you know, being part of that. So I'd love to have you join us. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me, I'm on Facebook. I have a website, adrianapopescu.org. I have a facilitators page on Access. Feel free to reach out and ask me any questions you might have about this. And the recording with the class, you'll get the clearings. Kyle is going to help with pulling out all the clearings we do. We'll do a clearing loop, and as a bonus, I'm going to throw in a money clearing loop that I'm put together that I'm actually going to have for sale on my website that has all of my favorite money clearings on a whole bunch of different topics. I gave that to the class members. They're all listening to it like nonstop and really like it. So I'm going to include that in as a freebie for signing up for the class. And you guys will get a copy of this recording, right, this Zoom that we've done today. As soon as it processes through Zoom, I'll send you guys a link to download the audio and the video. So feel free to listen to this again, because I know I covered a lot of territory. And even if you don't choose to take the class, there's a lot of useful information in just what we talked about today. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks you guys so much. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Bye.